Hi, I'm Katie Delaney. I am an astrologer and tarot reader, as well as a trained herbalist, aromatherapist, and nutritionist. Today, I am here with you to talk a little bit about this Mars transit that we are entering into. Now, as you probably realize, each planet takes a different amount of time to orbit around our solar system. The farthest reaching planet, Pluto, takes much longer to go around our solar system than, say, for instance, Mercury. So when each of these planets meets up and syncs up with the sun, it starts a new cycle. And the cycle that I'm going to be talking about today is this Mars cycle, which is what some people have coined the phrase as the hero's journey. Now, why is this something that we want to look at? Well, consider that Mars is a planet that it has a warrior type energy. It has this fiery energy to it. And so it shows where we are being called to engage. And it has a cycle that is a little bit over 2 years. So it is meeting up with the sun in direct conjunction today at the specific degree at 13 degrees of Libra. And it won't meet up with the sun again until November of 2023. So it has this 2 year cycle where it basically is starting a new cycle today, and it's going through this orbit over the span of the next 2+ years. So what does this mean? Well, wherever Mars is in our natal chart, it's showing where we are being called to engage and where there's a new beginning happening in our life. And it's not necessarily dependent on your sun sign, because your sun sign has a different placement within your natal chart in a different house, depending on what time you were born. So for this video, it's going to be more important for you to know your rising sign, also known as your ascendant, because that's what sets the dial as far as where those planets are going to be placed in your astrological wheel. Now, to just explain that a little bit, the astrological wheel is similar to a clock in that it has 12 different pieces of the pie within that wheel, and each wheel represents a different area of your life. They're known as the 12 houses. So as we go through each individual ascendant sign or rising sign today, you'll get a little bit more information about those individual houses and how they show up in your life. For instance, the first house is the sense of who you are. The second house is how you value things and the money that you have on hand. The third house is the house of communication. So depending on where these planets are landing in your natal chart wheel, it'll show where these new beginnings are going to be starting. So what's so interesting about this conjunction that's starting today is that we're going to be influenced by it for the next 2 years. This is like an initiating point. It's like the spark of a new beginning that's happening right now. But while this is happening, this conjunction between the sun and Mars, we also are having a new moon. So we have a conjunction of the sun, the moon, and Mars. So they're all within 2 degrees of each other today. And so we have even more force and energy put towards that new beginning, because as you may know, new moons are the time to plant seeds of things that we want to create in our life. And we also have this added component of Mars. Now, keep in mind that we also have Mercury, which is in Libra, the sign of Libra as well, only it's at around 20 degrees. It's moving at retrograde right now. So while we may be feeling this force and this new urge to do something new in our lives, there is a certain amount of kind of planning that we are doing currently at this time that will be shifting over the coming weeks. So let's just explain how these energies work. So the sun is our essential nature. It's where we shine in life, where we show up in life. And depending on when you were born under a specific sun sign. Now, the sun currently right now, being that it's October 7th when I'm making this video, the sun is in the sign of Libra. The moon is also in the sign of Libra at 11 degrees, whereas the sun is at 13 degrees. So they're only 2 degrees apart, and there are 30 degrees per sign in that 360-degree wheel. Okay, so each sign has 30 degrees to work with, and usually a conjunction would be considered when a planet or planetary body, celestial body, is within a range of anywhere between 0 to 8 degrees of each other, because they're still affecting each other's energy because they're at close proximity within that sign. So we have the combination of Mars, which is this energy of our warrior type energy, like where we feel called to task, where we feel the need to engage in a new beginning and in some kind of interaction and action in our lives. And we have the sun, which is where we really shine in life. So it's like an aspect of ourself is being called to action. We also have the moon there, which is adding this emotional quality to it. And then we also have Mercury with it, which is in just a few degrees of that conjunction that's happening. So we have the way that we are seeing things, talking about things, and planning things, which is all mercurial, also coming into that influence. Now, right now, Mercury is in retrograde. So it's in this space where we are looking at our perspective and taking measure of what we need to do and what we need to adjust. But come October 18th, Mercury will be going direct. And so we'll have the ability to move forward in a much more fast pace. Whereas right now, we're kind of in a space where we're like, drawing the bow back of the arrow, or drawing the lever back on the slingshot. We have this energy where we're drawing back to take aim, and that's where we're building right now. So where you are likely feeling this new beginning and this call to engage in life is largely dependent on your rising sign. So we're going to go through each of the rising signs right now. If you don't know your rising sign, you can go to astro.com. I will put the link for that in the description below. And then if you know what time of day you were born, that's really specific, because you'll enter in all of your birth information, your place of birth, your time of birth, your date of birth, of course, and it will tell you what your ascendant is or your rising sign. And that will, in essence, set the dial for this wheel that we'll be looking at, and will be more telling as to how the different celestial bodies are affecting you through transits, because they are going to be placed in those astrological signs, or those zodiac signs on that astrological wheel, dependent on when you were born. So first, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Aries chart. And so if we look at the Aries rising here, and we come into this Aries rising, you can see that Aries is in the first house, and that's because Aries is rising. But that will automatically place Libra in the 7th house. Now, Libra, as a zodiac sign, it governs relationships, contracts, ways that we engage with others. And so it's all sitting in its natural house, being that Aries is the rising sign in this person's chart, if you are Aries rising. So what does that mean? It means that Mars is in its opposite natural sign, because it normally would like to be in Aries. So it's sitting in this 7th house. So they could be called to engage into some discussions around partnership, or whether it's business partnership or intimate partnerships, engaging in some kind of activity to kind of bring balance to partnerships. Whereas, before, in most partnerships, we're looking for some kind of balance in some way, but this is bringing a force of an energy to it. So it could be disruptive in some way, or going in and kind of claiming what you feel like is really important and is really of value. And so if you're an Aries rising, this is the energy that you'll be really bringing in and seeding for the coming couple of years. So you could be really going in and going after a partnership that you want in your life, or also bringing conversation to the table as to what that means, as far as what's important to you and what you want to build. And that could be any one-to-one relationship. As I said, it doesn't have to necessarily be a individual, like romantic partnership. It could also be a business relationship, or any one-on-one friendship. It's a new way of engaging, and you're feeling a call to action. Whereas before, you might have been more focused on your own aims and where you felt you wanted to go in life. Now you're bringing in the idea of the other and what that would look like for you. Now, if you're a Taurus rising, now you're going to have those in a different placement. You're going to see this Libra energy down in the 6th house. So as a Taurus rising, right, your Taurus is sitting in the 1st house, which puts this Libra energy in the 6th house. You're feeling a new call to go into a work environment and to establish some new line of work or some new way of interacting with people, conversations that are determining, your value and what you want to do in life. You also could be going in and engaging with some new measures as far as how you take care of yourself on a daily basis and what your daily activities look like, what your routines are, and how well you're taking care of yourself health-wise, because this 6th house rules our health, our preventative health, how well we take care of ourselves. You may also be called into action in regards to some way that you take care of a pet, even because the 6th house rules and governs over small animals, which could be some of our pets. So this warrior type energy is being called to engage in some area that is governed by the 6th house. Now, if you are perhaps you're more of a Gemini rising. If you were born with a Gemini rising in your chart, you're going to see this Libra energy in the 5th house. Now, the 5th house is all about matters of the heart. So they can be matters around creativity. It could be matters around children and all the other things that we create that are of the heart. It also governs matters around new love affairs and engaging with new levels of intimacy with people. And so in this way, if you are a Gemini, either sun or mostly particularly a rising sign, you are feeling called to engage in some aspect that's going to be showing your greatest light out into the world. So what kind of creative ventures have you been wanting to put your energy towards? This is the initiation of this area of your life and where you're going to be putting those energies in the next 2 years. It's kind of like if you were stoking a fire, right? You're going to be putting it in this area of your life if you are a Gemini rising. Now, if you are a Cancer rising, now if you're a Cancer rising, which means that Cancer is in your 1st house, you're going to see this new energy and new mode and call to action in matters around your home and matters around your family, possibly even matters around being a mom, because the mother energy governs this 4th house, which is the foundation of self, our tribe, our community, our home, and not only our physical home, but also, our familial home, and so this new energy being called here, it's like this warrior type energy that's being called to, maybe like nest a little bit, like, get a new home, actually buy a house for the first time, or even, start a family with your partner. And so it's as if you have this Cancer energy in your 1st house, this 4th house is being what's stimulated for you. And so some change is being instigated by this energy that's happening in this area of the home for you. Now, if you are, let's see, if you are a Leo rising, we're going to see Leo in your 1st house, right? Which means that in your 3rd house, we're going to have this major conjunction and this hero's journey kind of happening between this Mars, Sun, Moon, Mercury energy. Now, consider that Mercury naturally rules and naturally governs the 3rd house. And the 3rd house is all about communications and how we speak to people about things, how we engage with people, whether it's through verbal communication, whether it's through visual communication, whether it's through emails, texts, phone calls, letters, and it's also what we do with our hands, like, and as well as education, like a lower level, practical level education. So if you have Leo, in your first house, you're looking at these changes that are happening and these new levels of activity and engagement happening around how you communicate with people, how you interact with people, and possibly even how you see the world, because the third house being governed by Mercury, Mercury is how we describe the world, how we see the world, how we give it words and lend value to the picture that we're seeing. And so this is creating some kind of change and some kind of engagement. You may also be called to have conversations that perhaps you had put off in the past, or to have important conversations around partnership, even because we have this Libra energy sitting in your third house by placement when you were born. And so you like these one-on-one communications with people, but you may be engaged in having some kind of contract established that you are starting and being called to start right now, like establishing some kind of clarity in communication with this kind of warrior type energy. You also could be looking at learning new things and possibly even taking more short trips, because the third house being governed by Mercury is all about short distance travel. So, making some income off of something that has to do with short trips, communications, or something of that nature. Now, if you are a Virgo rising, we're going to jump over to them next. Now, the Virgo rising folks, they're going to see this energy and this shift, if you will, in the second house. Now, our second house is all about our sense of values and the money that we have on hand and how we value that money, what we do with that money. It's also a house that governs the body, because it's a Taurus governed house by nature. But you have Libra sitting there. So you have a lot of ways that you could be making money having to deal with one-to-one relationships. So you also could be looking at how you value yourself within relationships and engage with people in those relationships. You also could be starting a new vein or line of resources for yourself around now, because you are having this call to action. You could also be paying a lot more attention to the resources that you have on hand and where your money comes from and what you're doing with it, and just valuing things and looking at how you put your time into your value system much differently now. Now, consider that for the next 2 years, we're going to be seeing Mars move around this chart. And so it's going to be hitting other planets and transits as it goes through our solar system. But it's basically planting a seed now that has our attention and a big amount of our own force put toward it. So putting your money towards establishing resources and what you're doing with your life at this point, and possibly even establishing a new line of income, because we see this initiating energy happening right here in the second house for you Taurus rising folks. Now, the next one that we have in line is going to be Libra rising folks. Now, that means that this energy is all happening in your first house. So the first house is all about our sense of self, who we are, what motivates us, and how we're seen out in the world. And so having this, big force of energy in the first house is kind of like, Mars is in its natural house, but Libra is in its opposite house, if that makes sense, because Libra typically in the natural laying of the zodiac system would be in the 7th house. So it's sitting in the first house. So, a lot of your sense of self is also around relationship with other people, and that's just who you are in nature. But you're feeling like this warrior energy is being returned to you. So you're feeling a call of action in how you engage with people and possibly creating, relationships with people, but looking at, where is your valuation of self in interacting with others, and and what is your sense of self? So your whole sense of self and how you see yourself and what motivates you is being shifted right now. It's kind of like, if for instance, like they talk about this one Kachina warrior doll down in Santa Fe, where the woman was, putting up her hair, but there was a war going on outside. So in the statue representation of this woman is a woman who has half of her hair done and the other half is down because she couldn't finish tying her hair up. She was called to action. So her typical way of identifying herself as, a homekeeper or someone who tended to others got shifted when she was called to action by this war that was happening outside of her house. So there's an energy like that that's happening with you now, in that you're being called to be a different a different evolution of yourself. It's like you are being called to action in a new way, and it will shape who you are, how you see yourself, and what you even know you're capable of because of responding to this call that you're feeling right now. Now we're almost through the end of these guys. Let's look at the next one down the road. We have Scorpio rising. If you are a Scorpio rising, this is going to be placing this Libra energy in your 12th house, and that's where it sits in your natal chart, which means you're having this big grouping of energy and this conjunction happening in your 12th house right now. So we are feeling, a lot of work on self, a lot of reconnection to, the higher connections of what we actually believe, and perhaps even how you feel connected to a higher source, to God itself, to your higher self is being affected right now. You may be called to actually reach out for help and ask for help from higher realms right now, because your whole belief system is kind of being shaken and worked with in the current times. Now, consider that, the 12th house is kind of like our skeletons in the closet, the things that we have hidden even from ourselves. It's also like where we go to, connect to God, to connect to the highest aspects of who we are. And so in that way, it speaks to what we believe and our sense of belief. Sorry, there's this like flying creature in my house, and it's wanting to get some attention on video. But the 12th house it's all about like, what do you believe is important? And are you responding to what you believe is important? Are you feeling called to speak up and to say something about things that are happening right now? And whereas before, maybe you just always were more passive because you didn't want to disrupt a person or the situation or the balance of an experience. Now you actually feel called to say something, and you have to do it because it is what will bring you peace within yourself. And it's important, that we do speak up what we believe and we share our perspective with people, because there are 360 degrees in any point of view, right? And if we always see things from our point of view, well, that's a very sharp perspective that leaves out a lot. But, if we can go out to the window of the world and share our perspective with people, then we get a better range of what's going on and how other people live. And in that way, we really kind of connect the dots as far as our experience and what's out there and what is to be seen. I think we're in a tricky time right now because we don't want to see all perspectives, and it's really what is important. And so if you are someone who has a Scorpio rising, it may be that you feel really called to share your perspective and what you believe, and it's important for people to hear it. Now, for the next one that we have going down the line, we are going to be looking at Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius, as your rising sign, is going to put this Libra energy in the 11th house. Now, the 11th house is all about things that we need to let go of, things we might have some detachment to. It's also matters around our friendships and our long range hopes and dreams. And so there may be something happening to one of your friends or some situation going on in your life with a friendship or a friend group that you are feeling called to engage with, perhaps before you just kind of let other people go first. You let other people kind of speak their minds and you took a back seat to it. Well, now you might feel called to actually speak up for someone or speak up for even your friendship or, speak up for something that you feel like is out of line or out of balance. What's so important about this to remember, though, is that Mars can be an aggressive energy, but it's important that we don't move so fast before we've gathered all the information before we say those sharp words. And right now, with Mercury being in retrograde, it is important for us to take a seat back and gather more information before we can fully engage from a knowledgeable point of view. And so consider that Mercury is going to be moving out of retrograde come August 18th. And so when that happens, it might be, that would likely be a better time for you to speak up and say the things that you need to say, and to engage at that time, because right now, not all the information is presented and there is quite a bit that still needs to be revealed. So if that's what the new energies are going to be coming up for those of you who have the Sagittarius in the first house. Now, if we go further down the line, we just have a few more left to go. We're going to have Capricorn rising. Now, if you have a Capricorn rising, you have a lot of change happening in your life right now anyway, because we also have this Pluto energy that's been sitting here for quite a long time. And so there's a lot of transformation happening for you in this first house, especially considering that Pluto just moved out of retrograde yesterday. And so we're starting to feel some motion, some forward motion for those of you who have Capricorn rising, as far as your sense of self and your direction in life right now and the changes that you've been wanting to make, but that you've felt kind of been on hold. Alongside with that big Pluto energy that you've been working with, we have this energy of Libra, which is happening in your 10th house. And the 10th house is all about our life path, our career path, our long range hopes. I mean, not our hopes, but our long range, like where we're going in life, our reputation and what we hold out in front of others in the public. And that's your natural house, right? As a Capricorn, because you would govern the 10th house. So you have Libra sitting there. So you're having this shift and this change that's happening in this area of your life. And it's almost like you're being called in a new direction in life and in regard to your life path. And you are also doing it with consideration of other people. So it's a life path that involves some sort of partnership, some kind of, whether it's either a business partnership, like a big business kind of partnership, or if it's an intimate partnership, there's some part of you that is feeling like it needs to engage in a new way and from a fresh perspective, given all of the changes that have been happening in life. Perhaps there's something that's been out of balance or something that needs to be said that's just kind of been overlooked or swept under the rug or suffered through in some way. But this is a call to action, a call to some kind of change. And it's something that within you is being stirred in this area of your life, within, possibly changing your career or changing the direction that you've been going because of this shift that's happening right now. So if we go on to the next round, we have Aquarius. Now, Aquarius, being in this first house, is going to be putting Libra energies in your 9th house. Now, consider that the 9th house is all about our seeker within us. It's that which searches and seeks for something higher and something bigger than what most people would know. And so in that way, this 9th house can represent big things because it's influenced by Jupiter. And big by way of big business, long distance travel, bigger concepts that lead to like religious study and things like that. So this ninth house being triggered by this Mars energy is bringing up this, initiating kind of force and this new change of action, possibly even towards some kind of higher level of education or higher level of study, or initiating starting a big business or some kind of really large venture that you've been thinking about for a long time. It also could be speaking to, some kind of trip that's happening, like an overseas trip, something that's abroad. And this can be the initiation of that, or at least right now, over the next couple of weeks through October 18th, the planning stages for that, whether it's planning for that new higher education venture or that trip or that business, there's some planning that's happening right now that will be more instigated, and there'll be steps that you can take toward that in full after October 18th. And then you'll see that this area is highlighted over the next couple of years with whatever experience you are initiating right now during the current time. Now, if you are, the last but not least, if you are Pisces rising, now with Pisces rising, this is going to be placing this Libra energy in your 8th house. So the 8th house is about things that are hidden. So in a lot of studies, they'll talk about the 8th house being sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So it can speak about, people's addictions and kind of where we like to drift off into luxury in life. It also talks about sex, whereas like Venus is more love related, this 8th house is more about like the passions of intimacy. The 8th house also represents matters around other people's money. So things that have to do with inheritances and loans and debts, and like your partner's income, your partner's money, other people's money in that sense. And so having these energies show up here may be revealing that you feel an urge to actually possibly take care of some old debts that you've kind of been just kind of brushing off. So like your own warrior energy is like, okay, I got to go in and take care of this now. I need to, set up the practical pieces and path and plans to actually like make headway in this space for myself right now. It also can be talking about, even your own willingness to look at some darker sides of your own character, and or not even of your character, but of your nature, and possibly some things that have kind of run off without being leashed, and taking measures to take those things into consideration and look at life in a different way. It also consider that the 8th house also represents matters having to do with surgeries and things that we need to go in and see the doctor for. That's more of like a immediate kind of heroic mission kind of medical procedure, whereas the 6th house deals with preventative health because it's ruled by Virgo. Scorpio is that sharp energy, so it's more of like surgeries and medical procedures. So you may feel called to go in and get something done now that you hadn't looked at before, and having that taken care of at this time, which I would encourage that if you are getting some kind of medical procedure or surgery done, that you look at scheduling it for a time where Venus is not going to be in retrograde, because Venus is going to be in retrograde coming up in December. And so consider, the astrological influences that are happening and other things that would affect the outcome based on their places of transits and your own personal chart. So it might be a good idea if you do have Pisces in the 1st house and you are being called to do something like that, that you link up with someone who understands medical astrology, so that you can pick the right time if you can have any control over when you can go in and get this medical procedure done. With that said, it can also be, as I had mentioned, dealing with our kind of call to action, so to speak, as far as, taking care of debts, and also even possibly following up with some questions around inheritances, or, having conversations if you feel like your partner maybe has like a gambling problem or something. It could be kind of a calling the heads of that kind of energy right now. Something is being stirred up in this 8th house for you, like something is being called to engage, and the 8th house rules and governs these areas of our life. So this can be showing up in this way for you right now. So that is a little bit of a snapshot. Of course, it's going to be different for you specifically based on your own natal chart, because that's just going to be your rising sign, right? In any of these charts, you have the placements of the celestial bodies that were specific to when you were born. And so these transits that are happening can also be affecting that as well. And not only are we all experiencing kind of this new beginning that's happening with the Mars, Sun, Mercury, Moon conjunction, we also have Pluto, which is in the sign of Capricorn, that just went direct yesterday on October 6th, and a number of other planets that are going to be coming out of retrograde the month of October. So a lot of energies that we've felt like just weren't shifting and moving quite as quickly as we would like them to, and we felt some kind of stagnancy in our life. That's because of what's been going on astrologically, and it also affects you personally in your own unique way based on where those planets were placed for you at your exact time of birth. So I hope that this information was all helpful and gave you some perspective in regard to how astrology can affect us each individually on our own lives. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to write something below. If you want to share if these things are showing up in your life and you feel a call to start a new beginning, I'd love to hear from you. Or even if you'd like to schedule a reading, please reach out to me at rootsofalchemy@gmail.com. You can also find information about my other services on my webpage, website, rootsofalchemy.com. Aside from that, I hope you all are well, and I wish you all the best in this new beginning and this great Mars transit that we are all stepping into. There's a lot of energy going around us all the time, and we are all under the influence in some sort, but we're here to make the most of it. I send you a good wish and so much love. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now. Mwah.